All right, hello everyone. Oh, you're gonna clap?
Yeah,
Is there one more? Okay.
Yeah, Tim taught me to do this,
Mm-hmm.
so it's easier for me to edit on
Yes.
there. Anyway, today's guest is Shaye. She's my friend. I met her how many years ago?
Like 7, 8?
7.
Something
Right
like that.
after I came back from Canada. I just let her introduce herself.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Shaye. As I'm really bad at self-introductions, I'll just tell you quickly. I've been living in Japan for over 10 years. I came to Japan for the first time when I was 16 through a high school program.
Yeah.
Then I came back to Japan to study, and I decided to enter university in Japan. And I was like, can I do this? But I got in, so I was like, might as well. And when I came back to live in Shiga, because I'm from America, but living in Shiga, I met Tsubasa on Craigslist.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you like.
I
was gonna ask you like where. I mean, I don't remember if it was.
It was like in the
Japan
pen pal
guide.
section or something like that. Yeah, it was like,
We met
I'm
on
looking for
Craigslist.
friends and living in the Kansai area. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I need friends and I'm in the Kansai area.
So I contacted you.
You were in Aichi though.
I was in Gifu.
Yeah, Gifu, that's it.
But you posted it and I
Oh,
contacted
maybe
you.
I did.
Oh, I don't remember. But
Yeah.
we met on Craigslist.
Yes.
I was thinking about that today. Like.
Yeah. It's so bizarre that people meet each other and then the sites or places that they were frequented are no longer, so you can't remember where you were.
Invitation to get murdered.
Sure, it was.
Craigslist.
And luckily I wasn't murdered and I'm here to this day.
I wasn't murdered either.
No, I
And-
don't murder too often.
And I met another great friend. Shout out to Gabby.
Hey Gabby.
Yeah, I think she's gonna listen to this because
Okay,
you on
nice.
it. You know.
Well, of course, Gabby, I love you.
I love you too. So yeah, but I hadn't seen Shaye in a long time. Also, like
Yeah.
I actually saw Gabby several years ago because she visited Himeji.
That's right. Yeah, she came to stay with me actually while she was doing internship. She's a photographer and she was from Germany. She came to my university too. I went to an art university in Shiga.
Right.
So shout out to Seian University of Art and Design. Almost nobody knows about it because it's so small. But she was there, and we became really great friends there. And then I introduced her to you. She became friends with you. And she came back a couple years later to do some kind of internship and study. She was with me. And then because she's friends with you, she went to Himeji to see you. So that is the short story made
And
long.
so I want to get into the topic. Fuck, what I don't know. The movies.
Sure, yes. I
You in a
studied
movie.
film in university. So I think I can call myself a filmmaker. I haven't made a film that I'm proud of yet to show people, but I'm hoping to change that soon. I've been into film for pretty much my whole life.
Making it, right?
I've made short films before, like, student things. Nothing that I'm proud to show people, but I've made them. And it's something that I deeply love because I love the process of creating things.
Okay.
I love the process of bringing an idea to some kind of like fruition and seeing it through. Right now I'm trying to find like a good story and good people to work with. So if I can find that, I really want to make a short film in the near future.
What kind of movies that you used to like that made you decide that, wow, I want to do this?
Mainly, like, it's not one movie in particular, but just how movies make people feel in general.
Okay.
Because movies have the power to change people's, not hearts and minds, but they definitely have a way to get into your subconscious and your psyche. Because there's things that we see in movies that influence us to behave a certain way. Now, of course, you don't act that way because you saw the movie, but it plants a seed in your brain, right? So there's some kind of questions movies can ask, like, or just how they make you feel, sad or happy or joy or anger. Like when you see, like, in Star Wars, for example, it's not a great example, but like you feel so horrible when you learn Darth Vader is his father.
Okay.
Right? Because you thought his father was a hero, but he was actually the evil villain. So everybody can resonate with those like main archetypal Jungian like things.
What? Jungian?
Jungian. Jung is the
Union.
Is that it? Not like Freud and Jung, right?
Okay.
So like everybody can resonate with those things. Like the hero's journey is like the main thing people think about. But every person that lives has an unconscious story inside of them of all the millions and billions of people that lived before us.
Okay.
So stories are what make humans in my opinion. Because for the best of my knowledge, ants tell a story, but it's a communication tool. They don't tell a story to feel wonder or surprise or anger or sadness. To the best of my knowledge, and all apologies to dolphins who probably do this, I don't know, but humans have this power, this fantastical power where we can transport our minds into new worlds.
Okay.
It's the power of creativity, basically. That's what I love about film, is that it can make you feel those things.
Right. So, what movies, like, you don't have to say just one, but like, what movies that made you feel strongly that way? So
many in general, like...
Anything worth mentioning?
Oh, well, shout out to Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, fuck yeah.
Kubrick is... Okay, his birthday is July 26th. My birthday is July 27, which was yesterday.
Man, that's awesome.
So I feel like... Not kindred spirits, which is a weird thing to say to a person you've never met before, and like all apologies to his family, but I feel like I'm sure this happens to most people who are maybe not even just fans, not even of Kubrick, but of someone whose work you admire. It speaks to you on a level that is deep. And it's not just because his movies are masterpieces, they are, and not just because they pose a lot of thought-provoking questions. It's the way the person has made the movie. You're looking into their soul, essentially. It's the same as you look at a masterpiece in an art gallery. You look at a picture of, I don't know, let's even say the Mona Lisa. Everyone's seen a picture of it, right?
Yeah.
And everyone feels beguiled by her smile. Everyone, they feel this emotion while they're looking at that painting. That's why it's a masterpiece.
Okay.
So I feel like paintings or other things make people feel these emotions that are deep and subconscious. And Stanley Kubrick was a master at creating those emotions. That's why I picked him out to showcase. But all sorts of movies can make you feel that way, even from the dumbest, silliest comedies. It doesn't have to be a Stanley Kubrick film.
What Kubrick films do you like?
Oh my god, I can't say one I don't like because I love them all for various reasons. They all of them resonate with me on like different levels of different ways. Like, of course, 2001: Space Odyssey is about technology. So every time there's some kind of crazy technology mishap, I always imagine the question of that movie is, can AI be sentient as the same as human beings or not? That's the main question of that film.
Right.
And it becomes a philosophical question as to what is a human being. Essentially, right? So I always think about that too when we talk about AI technology being developed, because so far there is no such true thing as AI. But could there be? Is that even a possibility? That always comes back to my mind, right? And a human error. We think we're so smart, but we really are just monkeys with,
sticks.
Yeah, with sticks, beating the shit out of each other, right? Like, for what? What are we fighting over? Like, these things come back to me.
Okay.
And it's not just his films that have made me feel that way, but, most people have seen his films, would know what I'm talking about, so I use it as an example.
Yeah, I love the aesthetic.
Yes.
I never, thought that deeply about films, but I guess you studied, so you right?
I'm not a master by any means, but...
I mean, I have a lot more to say about movies. I love Stanley Kubrick films too.
Sure.
I love Clockwork Orange.
Oh yeah,
That's a weird one.
That is a weird one, because you see a movie on a surface level, and then you think you know what it's about, and you watch it again, and you think, actually, everything's the opposite of what I thought, and then you watch it one more time, and you're like, no, I'm even more confused, because so what I love about any movie or painting or any work of art, it doesn't even have to be something you would associate with art, but it's something that poses a question to you that really has no answer.
Sure.
And I love questions with no answer, because for me, thinking about a problem or something, the joy is in finding a discovery about it. You might not ever get the real answer, but the joy is in the discovery of what you learn about it or yourself or other people or the world, right?
Okay.
That's how I feel. I don't know how you feel.
I kind of, I couldn't really follow.
Oh,
Could you
okay.
like elaborate?
Sure. It's very difficult to explain, but like, you are an artist, right?
Yeah.
You draw and paint and do things,
yeah,
right?
And music.
So like, what compels you to do those things?
What's a compel?
Compel means make you. Something pushes you forward to do it.
Oh yeah. It used to be like good question. I was one of those people who used to be only able to draw when I'm feeling like angry or sad. Because I kind of process those negative emotions that way.
Sure.
Like you can like directly see in my pictures like
right, some kind of rage.
yeah.
I noticed.
These days I watch movies and like, oh, that movie made me super emotional in a good way.
Sure.
And I would draw that scene in my own way and stuff like that. But initially it was like, oh, I have to express this thing, otherwise I'm gonna go to jail or end up dead or something.
I see. So you had some kind of
but...
like primal emotions inside of you that just had to come out. And art was a healthy way for you to use that.
Yeah, I channeled it.
You channeled it through your art. So I feel like the joy of creating that art was discovering that about yourself, maybe. And just getting it out there.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, it wasn't bottled up inside of you. Right?
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a very similar emotion.
When it comes to movies.
Well, particular movies, but art in general.
Right.
Right, and like I said, art doesn't have to be a thing that's made. Art can be some emotions as well.
Okay.
I think, in my opinion. Like,
What do you mean by
art can be anything. Like, how do I explain? Like, someone's life can be a masterpiece. How they live their life can be a masterpiece to other people.
Sure, yeah.
Their example of who they are and what they stood for and all the things they accomplished or didn't accomplish in their life. I think, like, one of my, I wouldn't say heroes, but one of the people I deeply respect throughout history is a man named Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
And he was a Stoic philosopher. He was also a king in ancient Greece, I believe. And in my opinion, his life was a kind of masterpiece because it serves as a role model for us now when we look back on how he lived, because he wrote a lot of Stoic teachings for philosophy.
Okay.
We can look back on that and we can see how he applied this in his actual daily life. He not only walked the walk, but he talked the talk. Or he talked the talk and walked the walk, I should say. I had it backwards. So, like, maybe we'll go into it a little bit, but sure. I really love Stoic philosophy, and there's 4 main virtues of Stoic philosophy, which
please tell me.
They've escaped my mind for the time being. One of them is a virtue, leading a virtuous life.
What does that mean?
That means living in the truth of who you are.
Okay.
Never betraying the truth of who you are. So for you, when you were thinking you have to make this art, if you had been like, no, can't do it, you would have been betraying yourself.
Oh, okay.
You felt compelled to make it, and you had to get it out. Had you bottled that up, it would have come out in a destructive way some other way.
Yeah.
Maybe you would have hurt someone, or hurt yourself, or just become a crazy alcoholic or something. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, people, they don't live in their truth every day, and they cause themselves harm or other people harm because of it.
Okay.
In my opinion, as I say. I can't say that for sure, but I just feel like it. So
there's one thing.
Just one thing, virtue. Other ones are like in honesty, some other ones. I can look it up later.
Okay.
But getting back to the main point of why I like films is because I also feel compelled to, like, I like problem solving and thinking about things. And there's so many things in the world regarding how humans relate to each other, how humans relate to what we have created in this world. That there's deep philosophical problems that we probably don't know the answer to. But I feel like exploring those questions you can do through the medium of art, and I in particularly like film. Other people do painting, some people do poetry, some people make, performance art, technology art, and some people just live their lives in a way as to be a role model for others. There's all sorts of different ways you can express that.
Cool.
In my opinion.
I see. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a heavy topic right away.
You definitely know more about that.
I don't know if I know more, but
you think about it more, obviously.
I definitely think about it a lot. Not in an overthinking, worried, anxious way. Just of like, I love to let those things roll around my brain and just contemplate them for all kind of sides.
Yeah. And you graduated the school making movies, and now you teach at the same school.
I don't teach at the same school.
Oh, yeah?
Right now, I'm teaching in an elementary school as an English teacher, which, is a common job for most people in Japan.
Right.
I teach elementary school students, so every day I'm just so amazed by their minds, the way they think.
Okay.
And sometimes really adorable, sometimes kind of rude. But I love seeing how they develop not only their personalities, but I love to see how they develop their approach to the world. Because each person has their own approach. Each student is an individual.
Okay.
So it's really kind of fun for me to watch that as well. Because not only they're learning English, of course, but I feel like as a teacher, your job is to not tell them how to be, but teach them how to learn to be themselves. And that's what I think. So I kind of keep that in mind while I'm teaching.
Cool. I have a lot of friends who are teachers, obviously. If you were in Japan, if you were foreign, I would assume you were a teacher. But not everybody likes teaching. And a lot of friends of mine just came here through teaching, because that's basically the only way you can get in here if you don't speak Japanese fluently.
That's
so it's interesting sometimes to see people like you and Tim, who I just interviewed in the previous episode. And actually I knew a guy who I think he started as an English teacher, but he ended up making a part of katana, whether it's like I don't know how
the hilt, I think it's called.
Probably. Or some part. Like just different parts, right? He does that.
Okay, that's really cool.
And whether you became a Michael, or I don't know anybody like that, but it's kind of a different thing, right? Because if it's traditional, maybe people wouldn't accept non-Japanese.
Well, I don't know about that.
I'm not sure.
One of my good friends just got her license to be a kimono dresser or stylist, or what, I'm not sure what you would call it in English, but kimono no kitsuke. She can do that. She just got the license for it.
Holy shit.
Well, she's part Japanese. And if you ever want to have her on the podcast, let me know. But
sure, I want to.
I don't know that just because it's Japanese traditional thing that they wouldn't accept you as a foreigner.
Oh no, I mean just
I
certain
think that
things.
it's difficult to start learning something because you do have to become accepted part of a community. But if you attain a rank that's high enough, maybe respect gets you in that door.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. You would have to ask somebody who's done something like that. But
I just heard a story about being Michael, and just one of the requirements were to be Japanese. But obviously some people who want Japanese just... So, yeah, it all just depends on what you're doing.
Well, I don't know much about Michael. But I do know that it's a very complicated world. I know a little bit about it because I live near Kyoto, so I was very curious. But probably someone else who knows better can tell me. But basically, they start training from when they're like 10 or 11 years old. So they don't even go to junior high school in Japan. They have to drop out.
Really?
And, yes, and they do their Michael training until they're like 16, 17-ish. And because I don't know exactly what happens, but they can either choose to be the Michael for a while, or as they age, they become the Geiko. And then
Geiko, never heard of that shit.
Geiko is like the more high rank, or someone who's aged out of being a Michael, I think. And because I don't know so well, someone else is probably listening going, that's not right. But they can tell you more.
You can comment if you don't like what she's saying.
If anything is wrong, just be like, that bitch is wrong. That's fine.
That's fine. But it's interesting to see like all these people doing different things. I'm so used to English teachers.
Right.
Really inspires me. What are other things that you do these days? Because when we met, you doing that, and pretty much I guess.
Yeah, well, I was a student at the time, so I wasn't really doing anything outside of that. I had part-time jobs, of course, but I wasn't really doing anything that I would consider to be like on my path of my life. So after I graduated university 3-4 years ago, well, maybe something like that, I can't remember. It's been a while, and you start to forget when you're older you get. I graduated university maybe 3 years ago. Well, to be frank, at the time, I was rather overweight. And it's not because I was lazy. I think I just had really unhealthy habits that I didn't realize were unhealthy.
Like what?
Like, I didn't walk around a lot. I mean, I walked to and from school. I always thought of myself as being rather athletic because when I was a child, I was really athletic, actually. But through my teens, I gained a lot of weight, and I could never seem to lose it, and I didn't know why. And then... obviously I had to be overeating to be as big as I was, because I ended up max around 100 kilos.
I see. What's that in
pounds? That would be like over like about 215 to 220 pounds or so.
I see.
In that range, because I don't know my max weight. That was just around what I guessed.
Sure.
So I really wanted to change for a long time, but I just didn't know how. And I decided one day, like, you can't just think about it. You just have to start doing something.
Yeah.
So I decided to start like counting calories, and not in an aggressive way, in a sustainable way. I only took away 500 calories at a time from my daily total. Okay. But it worked. I started losing weight.
That's how you started.
That's how I started.
Okay.
And just started moving more, walking more, doing more. Because it sounds simple when you say that, but it's a process that you go through when you're doing it. And eventually that led me to working out, because a lot of my friends were into weightlifting, and I've always admired it.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to do it, but I didn't know how or what to do.
Yeah, it's kind of an intimidating world to get into if you don't know nothing about it.
It really is. I think a lot of people are intimidated by it. So I just decided I'm just going to go to the gym. Nearby where I work, there is a gym. I thought it's nearby. I can go after school. I'll go there. So I did. I started going, and I knew absolutely nothing about weightlifting at that time. Like, I knew you lifted the weights, but I just didn't know anything about it, right?
I saw pictures of you just going into it. Like, I didn't know anything about it, but I just started lifting. I remember that era.
Yeah, and so that was about 3 years ago, I should say.
Okay, recent.
So I started doing that after I lost about 50 kilos. No, sorry, 35 kilos, just from my diet.
35 kilos.
Yeah. And then, because I started weight training, I started adding muscle, of course. So, right now my weight's around 63 kilos. But the reason I know why that's important, because weight's not so generally important, is because when I discovered I really loved weight training, I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to continue this, I should make a goal for myself. What do I want to do with it? Because I'm sure some of your listeners know about weight training. You might not know. You can just genuinely train and do whatever you like, and that's great. But if you are the kind of person who, like me, likes to solve a problem or have a goal or reach some kind of potential, I decided I'm going to do powerlifting.
What's the difference between powerlifting and
Olympic lifting? Weight training?
Same thing?
Well, it's like if I said I like running. Well, that doesn't mean anything. It's not specific. I like marathon running. I like sprinting. I like hurdles. There's a more nuanced category of each thing.
So what's a powerlifting?
Powerlifters only do 3 big lifts. So there is a bench press, there is a squat, and there's a deadlift. There's only 3 lifts that they do that in a competition.
Right.
When we train, we do all sorts of training, lifting. But in the competition, there's only 3.
Okay.
So
you started doing that.
I started training for that, yes. And it gave me a kind of more clear idea of what kind of training I should do for that goal. Because before I was a novice, so I was just well, I'm going to do lots of things and see what I like.
Okay.
But when I decided I'm going to do powerlifting and eventually powerlifting competitions, to improve your deadlift, you have to do a certain kind of accessory work, certain kind of lifts that help you build your muscles here or your strength here. So over the process of learning about these things, I came to understand more and more, and I'm not a strength coach professional, but, I have a good understanding of a lot of sports and fitness things now.
Okay.
So it changed my life, really. Because I went from a person, I wouldn't say I was unmotivated, I just didn't know how to make myself motivated.
Right.
and also how to be disciplined in something.
Mm-hmm.
It really did impact my life in a very positive way.
Yeah, I felt that way when I saw that. Like, it's like, I mean, I never did that, but like even like small thing like I bought like dumbbells and shit and started doing it. I fucked up something, but when I saw some progress, even like actually even without seeing a big progress, I just kind of felt like physically obviously, but mentally affecting me in a super positive way that I never really like experienced before.
Exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure there are people out there who've experienced not even just weight training, but maybe sports or something in general.
Yeah.
Or just something that you can dedicate yourself to, even any hobby. Like, you develop a mental clarity or some kind of focus.
Yeah, because I didn't think I was going to be able to speak English this much, but then I just kept doing, and I guess it's the same kind of things, I don't know what's the word, but apply to sports as well, but it's you're moving your body, so it's a bit different from learning languages and practicing guitars and stuff.
Well, it's a very similar concept, I think.
It is. So
because, like, you know,
those intense feeling.
Like, when you're learning music on you've got a guitar over there. When you're learning a piece of music on the guitar, it's hard at first. Your fingers don't move the right way.
Yeah.
But the more you do it, the more you realize, oh, okay, this is how it's done. Mm-hmm. And then you can learn how to improvise.
Absolutely, and you get better and better at it. And the only way is to keep doing it.
Exactly.
Consistently.
I agree.
Cool. Was there some... Obviously, there was a fear of starting... I mean, I never gone to gym because... Well, I'm not gonna lie. I'm a bit, like, not nervous. But feel a little bit, like...
Intimidated?
Yeah, intimidated going into gym.
Right.
And I felt around people that been doing that for a long time. I don't really care, but like there was fear like that for you to get into that environment.
Well, yes and no. Because as a woman, so there are more men in the weight section than women are. In Japan, maybe not in other places just anymore, because women are weight training more and more. But especially in Japan, especially in the gym I went to, the gym I went to was kind of not like a Gold's Gym type of gym.
What?
Gold's Gym is a very well-known chain of gyms that a lot of bro type people go to.
Bro gyms.
And nothing wrong with that. But what I mean is that it's not a commercial gym that people go to. This was a gym that was like more of a big, fancy community center. They had a pool, it had dance classes, yoga classes. It was a little expensive, which is why I ended changing gyms. But what I mean by that is when I went, there weren't a lot of people who were doing like, rah, kind of gym things. Like they were doing, they were working out and doing it really well for whatever they were doing. Yeah. But it wasn't so intimidating for me because there wasn't that like testosterone fueled like rah, kind of situation. So I could ease into it a little bit.
That's cool.
I think a lot of people are intimidated by that because they think like, oh, I look stupid, I don't know what I'm doing. But you have to remember, everyone was a beginner at one point.
Yeah.
None of them came out of their mother's vaginas knowing how to weightlift. I mean, they wish they had.
Sure.
But yeah, they didn't. They wish they did, but they didn't. Every single person is a novice. And that's a lesson that was really important for me because we hold ourselves back from a lot of things in life thinking, well, I couldn't do it because of this reason, because of that reason.
Yeah.
But then I realized every single person started from the same circumstance.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to do it. Some people have more resources than others, but everybody has the same equal footing when it comes to beginning. Right? Along the way, you end up getting lucky if you meet certain people who teach you this, or you decide like what kind of style you want or something like that. That's all luck and happenstance. But when you're ready for that luck to happen, you can take your chances. So there really is no reason to be afraid of beginning. In my opinion.
Absolutely. And like one thing I've noticed like over a decade of trying to explore different side of the world and try to meet people and do things that I've never done before is just to, if you feel afraid, you probably should run into it and just
Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
That's such an adventure.
I agree.
So if you're scared, just run into that.
Yeah.
Unless it's so dangerous that you could
well, obviously, like, a storm or something, metaphorically we're speaking. But that's actually a big proponent of Stoic philosophy as well. Like, what fear is controlling you is the exact fear that you need to face head on. Because if you don't, you will be controlled by it for your whole life.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Deep
Jump
true.
into that. But obviously, certain things that you still feel like you hold in yourself.
Absolutely.
And
There's
you're
a
always
resistance.
trying to make excuses.
100%. I'm not a perfect person. Like, I recognize that about myself, and every day I try to improve that just a little bit. Because you can't do a 180 overnight. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. From what kind of person I was back then, every day I have to make a conscious choice of who am I going to be today.
Yeah.
What will I do to impact my life positively and other people's lives positively? And what kind of person do I want to be? Every day, you get to make that choice. And that's really fun, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good day you can feel. It's fun. Yeah. I understand. That somebody said that you can't really compare yourself to others, which everybody knows that.
Right.
But you have to be able to have the measurement of how much you grow. Otherwise, you're not gonna have the goal and stuff like that. So he would say that to compare yourself to yesterday.
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
Do you do that?
I do. So when I'm weightlifting, I don't think about like, oh, that guy can lift this amount of weight. Like,
it's
compared to me,
compare yourself to.
I think like, wow, he can do that. That's amazing. I think wonderful for him. Like, I have like, how should I say, like, admiration for people who can do that. Like, one of my friends who is in a powerlifting competition with me, her lifts are wonderful, but they're her lifts. I admire her. And I think, I want to be that. I want to get next to that. But I'm not jealous of it. What I mean is, if she can do it, obviously I can too. So I have to work on my abilities, right? So you can feel admiration for people without being jealous of them.
Absolutely.
And I feel like that is one of the most ultimate mature things you can do in your life. Because you can celebrate someone else's accomplishments while simultaneously thinking, I still want to be better than that. And it has nothing to do with putting them down. It has everything to do with trying to lift yourself up as high as you can go.
Yeah. Now, after you turn your life around, would you say that?
I mean, I wasn't like at a rock bottom place of like homeless, like destitute or anything. But I mentally, I think I'm in a much more mature and secure place.
Cool. After you did that, I remember you like posting something about like maybe not you might not have posted, but like you remember talking about things like how people's reaction changed and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's so common for like people who do weight loss. They notice how other people change around them. So I've been living in Japan on my own, right? So most of the people around me are my coworkers or something like that. And they didn't really notice anything for a long time because we worked together. But for people I hadn't seen in a really long time, it can be a little bit shocking, I think. I remember when I went home to America for the first time after a year of losing weight.
Yeah.
I actually think one of the reasons I succeeded is I didn't tell anybody what I was doing.
That's good.
Not to keep it a secret, but to force myself to make a promise to myself to keep. Because it's easy to say like, oh, I'm going to lose weight. Oh, I'm going to lift weights. Oh, I'm going to run. If you say it enough, your brain already just believes you did it.
That's what it is. I always wondered why it's better not to do that because it's easier that way.
Yeah.
I never analyzed it.
Keeping it to yourself is a way to promise you're going to work on it. For me, it's worked out that way. So you have to motivate yourself to do it every single day and have discipline enough to do it, right? So I didn't tell anybody that I was losing weight. And it's fun to see people's reactions, to be honest.
That's always true.
So when I went home, I had lost from about 215 pounds down to like about 150-ish, maybe 140-ish. I can't recall, to be honest, but probably like within the range of 140 to 150, which is like 7 kilos or so. So quite a drastic difference, to be honest, because from quite large to average size, I would say. And my mother and my sisters were shocked.
Oh, you didn't even tell them?
They didn't know. They didn't know one thing. They were like, they're like, it was actually really kind of, I don't know, I felt very joyed because it's kind of like a recognition of I worked hard and I accomplished something.
Yeah, and you can see that in their face.
It's not a validation from other people, but more of like a, yes, I know how hard I worked, and also I'm seeing it from other people too.
Yeah.
And it felt really nice. But sometimes, and this didn't happen to me very much, but sometimes people can react in a negative way as well.
How so? Like, what do you think?
Because they're used to you being one way, and now you're not anymore. So their way of thinking of you is now gone, essentially.
Yeah.
Ruined. Not ruined, but changed forever. So they have to learn to relate to you as a different type of person.
Relate to you, yes.
Yeah.
So, what are these people you're talking about who had a negative reaction to it? Were they in the similar type of place that you used to be in?
Not necessarily. I don't know. I couldn't say that for sure, but I think in a general sense, not that this was particularly just only happens to me, but for a lot of people who lose weight, like, some people will become jealous of the success, I guess, because they did it.
Remember the singer Adele?
Yes. Yeah.
Remember the reaction that people had?
Yeah, I did. A lot of people were like, "Oh, you go, girl, good for you," and then like other people were like, "Oh, look at this bitch, she's skinny now." And I never understand the people who will get jealous of somebody because they don't understand the process of the hard work it takes to change yourself. Like, if anything, we should celebrate every single person who makes a change for positive in their life, whether it be losing weight to get healthy, not just for aesthetic reasons, so that helps. Like, if you are an alcoholic and you make the choice every single day to not take a drink, I applaud you. That's brave and amazing. You know, it's anything like that. That person has decided they want to change their life for a positive way, I think should be celebrated. And we shouldn't be jealous of someone for their hard work because you don't know the struggle they had to go through to get there.
It's probably just you are reflecting yourself and you broadcasting your insecurity to outside if you react that way.
I think you're right, actually. But, you know, subconsciously our desires and our fears and our emotions spill out onto our conscious actions.
Absolutely.
They always do.
You're always broadcasting your shit to outside world, and
right,
like,
whether you know it or not. And that's one of the hardest things to learn how to control.
Yeah, that's true.
But you can always sense a reaction of like someone's fake happiness for you.
Oh yeah.
Like, oh my god, you look so good. You were so big before. I can't believe it. Now you're skinny. It's amazing. Like, I know that's not a genuine compliment, but I have learned not to take that personally because I can see the insecurity in that person.
Oh yeah.
And that's fine. I don't judge them. I think they're in a place in their life where they can't recognize that or move towards fixing that. That is not my place to judge or fix them. Whatever someone thinks of me like that, I can't control. And there's no point in trying to control it. So I just let it be. Let them be.
Makes sense.
And that's another big thing that I've learned along this way of learning to like train my mind, train my body, train my like soul, everything. You know, not to take anything like that personally. Because I used to take a lot of things personally.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, I think most people do. Because we're brought up that way. We're insanely competitive and jealous of other people, even though we don't know why.
I learned to do that last year too.
Oh, really?
Like I changed. Yeah, like I don't know how to explain, but I stopped taking everything seriously, and that really turned everything around.
Right.
180. So I can relate. I was gonna say something about. Yeah, just keep going.
Okay. Well, we're we're chilling now. I'm sure everybody listening is like, this is heavy, man. This is deep shit right here. And some people are like, what? I don't know what they're talking about. Like, are they talking about me? I'm not talking about you per se. But it's just these things I've reflected on myself because you, as you're going through a process of changing yourself or just learning about yourself, you really have to face yourself and think about.
Painful.
It's very painful, actually. It's a painful process. It's not fun because you're learning how to heal yourself. And like I said, it's an everyday process for me. You know, I reflect a lot about myself and my actions.
You know what I encountered last year? There's people who, you think they're perfect and they always like a positive cape.
Yes.
They like the type of people who would post like shit like live life you.
Oh yeah.
Live the life you live, love the.
Sure.
And inspirational quotes and shit like that. These people like seem happy and all that in his Instagram stories and stuff, but these are the most. I'm not saying that they shouldn't do it because they're dealing with some deep shit, but like I've encountered a lot of people who like I'm all positive and look how positive I am and shit like that, but they are the most
fucked up people.
Yeah, to be honest.
I've noticed this too because well,
that's usually the case. I mean,
well, like not to get all like sciencey or stuff. Not sciencey. I would say like we were talking about Jung before, right? He's a psychologist. He said everybody has a shadow self. So our persona of who we are is what we project to the outside world, what we want them to see.
Right.
On the inside is our shadow self of who we really are or what we want to be. Right? Who we believe we are and who we truly are. Because we're all human beings with all these emotions that we don't know where they come from. We feel these things and yet we don't necessarily want to feel them. Sometimes we feel like fucking shit, like we don't know why. But there's always a reason that we haven't picked up on subconsciously.
Okay.
It's deep down there. So a lot of people who are like pure positivity have never truly looked at their shadow self. Have never looked at that person. Because those are the type of people who probably gossip the most, who probably talk bad about other people, who would stab you in the back. No, I'm not accusing anybody like that. What I'm saying is like when they refuse to look at their inner demons, their inner demons are down there festering, and they'll come out somehow.
Oh yeah. I had a weird experience with this person, and she wouldn't. I'm not sure if she was like genuinely happy about other people's achievement, but she would never like talk shit and stuff like that. It's just that she has just such a heavy like traumatizing darkness that she has in the past or whatever, and she just kind of I don't know, just where all these like have to be perfect, make everybody think I'm perfect, but she also refused that she's doing it. She says like I'm being honest and I'm being myself and I'm open about it, but she's not like it's like it's so painful to because she's such a nice person. So it's to some people it's so hard to just deal with that kind of shit.
No, it absolutely is hard. It absolutely is hard. It's one of the hardest things you can ever do in your life, honestly, because we all want to believe we're one thing, but we have to realize there's parts of us we don't like. Maybe we tried to suppress. Like for her, it's important to be seen as being perfect because that's her ideal self. That's how she wants to be. But she doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody is a perfect person. We have to kind of accept of who we are, and the bad parts about us we can learn to accept, and then how can we try to make it better so that we don't hurt other people or ourselves.
And she would complain that people see her as this perfect person, but I'm not. But that's what she's broadcasting. Maybe subconsciously.
I suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, what is perfect? What does perfect mean? Honestly. Like, when it comes down to it, what does she want to be seen as perfect for? It would be the question I would ask her if she were here. Like, not as a judging or accusatory way, but just like, what is so important about being seen as perfect?
I have no idea.
Because everyone has a different image of what perfect is. Some people's image of perfect is they have like 5 houses and they're super super rich and the world loves them because they're popular. Or someone's idea of perfect is I have a dog and I live in a little apartment and I watch the sunset every day. My life is perfect. I'm perfect. Like everyone has their own idea of what that means anyway.
Yeah.
So I would ask her, what does she want from that? What does she need from that?
Yeah. I don't know. Like yeah, I mean, just my thing is just because I used to be so negative about everything.
I remember a little bit.
What do you remember?
I just remember you were like, kill a human type person.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think
that's how I got into veganism.
Well, you wanted to kill people so animals may live, and I respect that.
But yeah, I was so negative that but I found out so I went to Canada and I figured everything's gonna be better because I'm with people that I'm in a place that I can do all the things that I wanted to do.
Sure, you felt constricted by Japanese society at that time.
Yeah, and I felt I didn't have a control over my happiness,
sure.
And I blamed everything on let's say Japan as a whole and other people around me, which is which is partially true, but I stopped doing that. And one thing I notice is wherever you go in life, those problems gonna follow you. Absolutely,
because there's similar people in Canada or anywhere who have the exact same feelings, exact same I don't have any control over my life here situation.
So the key for me to get over that kind of shit is to surround yourself with people who genuinely support you.
Absolutely.
So that was the key to me. And if I came back to Japan, it was a shithole. I didn't want to come back. But I realized I started surrounding myself with these. So I started a band.
Sure.
And I started meeting a lot of people. And I was the happiest. I didn't have a job. Right. I was living with my parents. But I was so happy because of these people. So that's what I'm not sure to everybody, but that's the biggest thing for me. What do you think was for you to feel better about yourself? Obviously, starting weightlifting and stuff like that. But is there any other things that you consciously try to do, like I did with surrounding myself with people?
Well, I think that's a really important thing too. Everybody needs a community of some sort, right? I mean, I like being alone a lot, of course. I go hiking alone. I can eat alone. I do lots of things alone because I'm not. As we talked about a little bit earlier, as I said, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely.
Yeah.
So some people can be alone and they feel lonely, and some people can be alone and they feel great, and some people can be in a room full of people and feel alone and lonely. So it really just depends on your mindset about that. So I think being alone and thinking about yourself and your thoughts is crucial to understanding yourself.
Okay.
Because that's the only time where you can truly think about yourself in the terms, because you have to look at yourself objectively. You can't use somebody else's idea of you to look at yourself, right?
Yeah.
So that's really important. But where are we going with this?
I don't know. Being alone and loneliness. How? So I asked you what specific things that you did to make your life.
Well, yeah, you said community. That's you surrounded yourself with people. That's really important. Yeah, I have a lot of dear friends, here and around the world that I think they give my life, a greater meaning and purpose because I enjoy having them in my life, and I want to see where they end up and what happens, and genuinely, connected. And Japanese people and all people around the world, right? But the most important relationship you have is the one you have with yourself as well.
Absolutely.
So, like I said, every day I make a conscious choice of what kind of person I want to be, and I think, how did I end up start doing that? It wasn't just a day one, this is what I do. Date
Yeah.
2, this is what I do.
How did you start?
It just evolved into a process of that. Like, I graduated from school. I started learning how to work out. Then I decided to make a goal. And then I decided, like, you know, I'm working in these jobs. And, you know, you just learn things from other people. And I think paying attention to your surroundings and the lessons that every interaction has to give you is important.
When you say every day you make a choice to be a better person, do you have like an exact thing that you do? Like you would write down what you...
I don't do any journaling or meditation or reflection like consciously. I just think like, okay, whatever happens today, whatever comes my way.
Yeah.
Because I thought about this long and hard during the corona. Well, we still have corona pandemic in Japan, unfortunately. But last year, especially with the orange monster who was in the White House, we will never say his name because we don't like him. But the last year of things that happened, every day I woke up reading the news feeling horror at what our world is coming to.
Okay.
And I realized, like, I can't control how that's playing out. I can only try and help people in my immediate family or area or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, like, there's a powerlessness in a lot of our lives because there's a lot of things that are unknown that will never be known. Yeah. And so what I mean is that I wake up to be a better person is I think about any actions, and this is not necessarily like I wake up and I'm like, here's what I'm doing today. It's just in the background of my brain computer mind. It's back there like a little program that's running in the background. And it's like today, whatever happens, whatever comes my way, I will try to be a bigger person than that interaction, or I'll try to help someone or feel gratitude for anything that happens to me.
Okay.
So I feel like I'm constantly trying to update that program. Not consciously, but on a more subconscious level if I can. And that means if I find one thing every day that makes me feel joy and feel happy, it's enough for the day. Or if I can improve myself in 1% of one any way, through the gym, maybe walking, or I love hiking, I go hiking all the time, or if I meet up with a friend, how can I leave that friend feeling better than when not making them feel better, but how can I bring my best self to our interaction? Okay. I'm trying to just be that person, be that way, embody it.
Cool.
Yeah. Does it make any sense? I don't know.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify what you meant by that. You know, like because it could be a little vague when you say, "I'm trying to better myself every day."
It is vague. It is vague, but I mean, because I'm not saying I started from like a position here where I was like the shittiest, meanest, horriblest person on earth, and I'm like, you know, have to bring myself up to some level. I just mean like on every human interaction that I can have, how can I better myself or other people through it? Okay. How can I see the most positive? Because not every interaction is going to be a positive or happy one. But how can I take away from that some lesson to make me better?
I see. I understand that now. Now, you are one of the people who are, I would say, pretty fluent in Japanese. So, I think the majority of people who listen to this podcast are people who, I mean, my friends too, but a lot of people study Japanese and like ask me like, how do I study? So what is your method and what did you do to become fluent?
Well, anybody who, there's like 4 levels of people who say they're fluent. First are like complete beginners, and they're like, oh, I know how to say like, you know, 10 words, I'm fluent.
I haven't encountered anybody like that.
I mean, they're just beginners, so like they don't, you don't know what you don't know. And then you move up into like novice level and you realize like, hey, I'm getting pretty good at this. Yeah. And then you get into like intermediate level and then you think like, oh my God, I mean, I don't know. And then you get to like advanced or fluent level, and then you know there are things you don't know. And you're free to admit that, because intermediates too, they'll be like, I know it, I'm great, I got N1, yeah. And then like you hit a fluency level and you're like, you know what, what does that say? I don't even know. Let's look it up on Google. Like you just reach a point where you're comfortable in admitting there's lots of things you don't know. But as language goes,
how did you reach?
I couldn't say I'm fluent because nobody would say they're fluent who is fluent, but
yeah, maybe true. So how did you get to the point of your level?
Well,
what did you do?
Okay.
What's your method?
My method is, first of all, I started learning when I was 12 years old. I started teaching myself.
Oh yeah?
Yes. And I just really loved languages when I was a kid. I started learning French too when I was 10. I was like a super nerd. And I was like, of course I'm going to teach myself how to speak fluent French from a textbook in the library. Like I had that weird drive that only dumb people have sometimes, but you need though.
That's cool.
You need, like, if you don't know how hard something might be, you stop yourself from doing it if you think it's hard. If you're like, yeah, of course I can. You just do it without abandon, and you end up being pretty good at it.
Yeah, I mean, that's good.
So I started teaching myself when I was 12, and then through high school I came to the program where I lived in Shiga for 2 weeks. Went to a high school.
Of course.
And
you went to the high school?
I went to high school, but for only 2 weeks. And I didn't really, I couldn't say enough. This is, okay, I'm going to date myself here, but this is internet days before YouTube. So, like, there are so many resources now for people, but back in the day, in my day, we had books with pages that you turned and you had to read the words. No Alexa, you know?
Yeah.
So, I used to make, like, practice charts in my room of, like, hiragana, katakana, and I would challenge myself to see how much I could remember. And eventually, I just knew I could write it. And then I started like, well, I can do kanji now. And I just started learning how to write kanji. I bought like those books at like, you know, bookstores and stuff, like 1,000 easy kanji or something like that. Cool. And I would just spend practice because it was fun. And I just liked to challenge myself. And then I was a nerd who'd come to school and be like, I know how to write 1,000 kanji. And then everyone would be like, shut up, we hate you. Nobody cared. But, you know, it was a fun thing for me to do. And so when I was 21, I came to JCMU in Shiga Prefecture, which is the Japan Center for Michigan Universities. I studied there for 1 year, Japanese. But as great as your program is, it's not really designed to make someone fluent. It's designed for you to get high grades in your Japanese classes so you could go back to your Michigan University.
I see.
When I was there, I made a choice. I said to myself, when I go outside, because in our dorms, we're all speaking English. We're not going to speak Japanese. When I go outside, I'm not speaking English at all if I can help it. I made a rule to myself that I couldn't do it. And so I just started going out. And luckily I made some really amazing friends when I was there. And they were gracious enough to let me tag along with them. So, like, they met cool people who owned bars or, like, had a restaurant. And so, like, because of their amazing connections, I just started being able to talk to a lot of people and pushed myself out of my comfort zone. And so from there, I developed all sorts of connections and relationships with people
that's the best.
Who, whether they realized it or not, were learning tools for me.
What? Learning tools for you, yeah.
Yeah, because I just listened. If I heard some words being used, I could look it up later and say, that's what they were saying. And then I learned how to retrain my brain so that when I'm thinking, because I can think in both languages.
Yeah, you have the switch.
I have a switch, and I've learned how to make a switch because I would learn a word for something and then I'd learn how to switch it out in my mind. So even though the sentence was mostly English, I learned how to replace the words in my mind.
Interesting.
And I thought I must do that because I forced myself to think in Japanese as well.
How do you do that?
You just start consciously thinking
yourself.
in your mind.
Okay.
Because, like, you can say, like, this is a smartphone. Then I'd be like, これは携帯です。これは携帯です。And because when we speak, words are flowing out of us. And I'm no linguistics, so any linguistics majors out there, please tell me what I'm saying if it's wrong. But we're just consciously bubbling up things and saying them. But we're also making our thoughts into cohesive things so other people can understand what we're saying. We have to do that in another language too, and that's hard to do. I notice this with my students. They have so much they want to say, but they can't put the words into a sentence.
Yeah.
Right? Not only because they don't have speaking practice, because they haven't learned how to think in patterns.
Interesting.
So you can learn like a phrase of a block of things, and you can learn another block of like words or phrases or sentences, and then you put them together to make a new one, right? And now you just made a new concept, a totally brand new thing. And then when you learn how to say that, you can connect that with this one and connect that with this one, and eventually you can learn how to have a conversation about your opinions and feelings easier.
I see.
It wasn't necessarily like 100% conscious process. I was just very acutely aware of everything around me. Like I wanted to soak it all up. And I was lucky being in Japan. There's plenty of people who aren't, who are like, well, I'm not in Japan and I can't do that. They have a hard time.
Yeah, that's not true though, because I learned most of my English in Japan.
Well, you must have had that same drive.
Apparently. I mean, I never like analyzed it like that, but
right. And I think a lot of people who are into what they're doing aren't necessarily analyzing it in that way.
Yeah, because I have no idea, but I guess that's what was going on, eh?
Sure, it must have been. And then when you went to Canada, you learned all sorts of new because language is not just the words you're saying, but language is the thought process of other people as well.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, you learn by, you know how people are thinking, you learn about their personalities by what they choose to say or what they choose not to say.
You learned it.
So, like, I learned how to interact with people in Japan. I learned about how they think about things or what they believe or how they, like,
okay.
You know, because language is also culture.
Yeah.
And so, for example, we're living in Kansai. Kansai Ben. I can also speak Kansai Ben. I had to teach myself Kansai Ben as well. Because I couldn't understand what people were saying around me because it's totally different.
Yeah, it's not from textbook.
No, but now when I speak to my friends, Kansai Ben just comes out naturally.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like to speak in a standard dialect most of the time. So, it just happens to come out that way. So I feel like when you learn those things, they become a part of you as well. And so that's how you can get good at a language, by making it a part of yourself somehow. Because you make it your own. And when it's your own, it's easier for you to own it, to use it.
Yeah, it come out naturally.
Because using a textbook is somebody else wrote those words. And they're boring words. 今日はたけしがスーパーマーケットに行きました. Who gives a shit about Takeshi in the supermarket, right? Like, they're there to teach you grammatical patterns, right? But, like, language is full of nuance and sarcasm and humor and, like, all sorts of things. And to learn that is quite difficult.
It is. I mean, a lot of people just struggle with the... I mean, depends on the person how... what method they use. Like, maybe there's pros and cons of if it fits to this person or not. But yeah, it must be. I've never thought about it.
It is really fascinating. Like in Japanese, men can use pronouns boku, ore, or other ones, right? Watashi, you can just say. So like a lot of boys, when they're growing up, will just choose one if it sounds more natural to them.
Right.
They don't really think about it.
Doesn't happen that in English.
No, not really, not at all.
Interesting.
So like, for me as a girl, I say uchi for like me.
That's very Kansai of you.
It is, and I just picked that up because a lot of the girls around me said it. But then I also thought about it because I was learning the language. I'm like, what fits me? Atashi? I don't like it.
Yeah.
Watashi? I don't like it either. Some girls use boku because they're kind of like rough girls or something, and I was like, but that's not me either. Uchi. Oh, I like that.
Uchi is, yeah. That's such a word, yeah.
Or sometimes, jibun or something like that. But you, when I'm speaking to somebody of like, to be polite, I'll say watashi. So, or I'm speaking about myself in third person, I'll use that too.
Right.
So like how you use a language changes on situations as well, especially in Japanese. So
totally.
Learning that is actually even more difficult, I think, than just learning words and phrases and grammar.
One thing I always mention when it comes to Japanese language is like first of all, it's hard to make friends with Japanese people. Like, first of all, because I guess we're shy too, but because of the language that Keigo how do you translate like polite?
Well, honorific speech, like there's
Honorific
like three
speech.
different versions of it, right? There's
Right.
ones you use for yourself. There's ones you use towards other people, and then there's another one too, I think.
Yeah. So anyway, when you use that, you kind of instantly creates this distance between
Yes,
you and the person,
absolutely.
and but if you don't use it, you sound rude.
Absolutely, you do. And like you don't know that you sound rude because it's not your language and you don't understand the nuance behind it.
Absolutely.
The thing is, like, most people who are language learners, Japanese people, will understand that and they won't feel offended by it.
No.
However, like, if you're a fluent speaker and you choose to speak in that tone, we know we can pick it up.
Right.
Like, if you know, if you're somebody like my boss and you're like, oh, are you going to the meeting now? I'm like, ikahen. You'd be like, what the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah, without using that.
Like, that's ikahen's like Kansai meant for I'm not going, but it sounds completely rude in that context.
Yeah, in that context.
However, if I was just a language learner and my friend said it the night before and I was like, oh, that's funny, and I said it to my boss, he's gonna be like, she doesn't know. I'm gonna forgive her for that.
Yeah, there's something like even as a Japanese person, it's like you constantly creating this distance between like, let's say, kawagoos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
'Cause I dig the what's the word? Intimacy between people, but it's like if I don't use it, I sound rude. I don't want to be rude, so I just, like I said, I started using keigo to everybody, even if you are like 10.
Sure.
I mean, if I'm working,
Right.
so that's how I
Yeah.
deal with that, and that's my way to translate the good culture about English to me was to be open and be able to talk to anybody the same way. Not like you have like other way
but the
to
language
make it
doesn't vary so
polite.
much.
Exactly. So I felt so free speaking English, even though I wasn't fluent when I was like.
Right, but you didn't have to
going
worry about
to-
like social standing or hierarchy or
Yeah,
anything like that.
exactly like that. So I wanted to translate that into Japanese after I came back. So I started talking to everybody without being polite.
Sure.
And I mean, the people who I was talking to were nice people, and they were exposed to Western culture too, so they didn't care. But I couldn't do that to people in everyday life. So
Right.
I had to learn to. Okay, I have to learn to adjust to, keep the mentality of being able to talk to people like I used to do in Canada and be friendly to everybody, but at the same time to adjust to Japanese culture in a way. So that's my way of doing it. It was like hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got in some troubles like using words that I wasn't supposed to.
Sure. Yeah. That's
So
very true.
as a foreigner, maybe has a different way of.
No, I think it does. Yeah.
But as a Japanese person who just came back from that kind of environment, it was so
shocking, I'm sure.
odd too.
Yeah.
Yeah, different experience, but.
And that's not to say that Japanese is it's a negative point. It just happens to be the way that people interact with each other here.
Yeah.
So like, if you become good
guess.
friends with somebody, you can probably use more like, tameguchi or something like that. But like,
True.
When I was in university, I was still older than the other kids. So most of them 18, 19-ish, and I was in my 20s. Like, when they talked to me, they didn't know I was older, so we just talked as friends.
Oh, there you go.
Eventually, when they found out my age, no matter how long they had known me, they'd put up that wall of like,
Really?
okay, it's time to speak Keigo to my senpai. It's like just because of how old I was.
Are they were they exposed to culture outside Japan or?
No.
Okay,
Where
that
I
makes
went to
sense.
university was like 99.9% Japanese.
Oh.
And then there were some other international students from China, Korea, some from Indonesia, some Asian. There was some Brazilian Japanese too.
Okay.
But they weren't international students. They were just from Japan. But what I mean is we had a very small group of non-Japanese people. And, well, all my classes, everything was Japanese as well. So...
Wow.
So, like, I had to adapt to that environment, and
Yeah.
I didn't really tell people my age because, I figured it's not important. You know me on a one-to-one level. But a lot of times...
Yeah.
So the people I became super close with, they didn't act that way. But, like, people in your class or your classmates...
Just know your acquaintance.
Just know you as an acquaintance. If they found out how old I was, instantly it was the keigo wall comes up.
Yeah.
And I would be like, no, you don't have to use desumasu. You can just, talk to me as normal. And they'd be like, hi, wakarimashita. Like, okay, so I give up. Because you have to let people speak to you how they want to, really. You can't force them to do it.
I remember seeing seeing this person who used to be my coworker outside work because she quit. And I was like, hey... And now we don't work together. You can just talk to me in like tamego, which means the casual way of talking. And she's like, okay, and we start talking, but it's so awkward.
Yeah.
So we just kind of started mixing keigo and
I
just started
think that happens.
feeling so horrible. Like I have to go home. I'm sorry.
It's weird.
That's weird.
It is weird. So for people learning Japanese who are kind of like, I don't understand any of that. Like, what are you talking about? Like. If you were living in Japan, it will come to you quicker. But if you're just learning Japanese on your own, it might take a while for you to understand. But
go for keigo first, though, like textbook stuff first, because you don't want to come out really like.
No, definitely speak not as a textbook, but learn how to use like the polite must and des forms.
Yeah,
because you can't go wrong with that. Like that's a polite way of speaking to everybody.
Yeah.
But, like, a lot of people have really a lot of trouble with, like, honorific stuff of, like, senkeigo and, like, like, nani nani de gozaimasu or something like that. Like, even people in Japan aren't very good at that. Like, if you go to a restaurant and you order ginger ale, well, they'll put the ginger ale down and say, ginger ale ni narimasu, but that's not the actually grammatical correct way to say it.
That fucking bothers me so much. Stop fucking saying it.
And the thing is, though, like, it used to bother me, too, but then I realized, like, that's baito. That arubaito means like part-time job in Japan. That's how people are trained to speak working a part-time job.
I don't know.
Or maybe they're just not smart enough to know. But I feel like almost everyone says ni narimasu. So if you said de gozaimasu, the real correct one, people are going to be like, first of all, if they know, they'll respect you. But most people will be like, what? Because everybody says it the other way, even though it's wrong.
I don't think they would be like, what? I think they'll be... to me, maybe just for me, but they sound professional. Like, I always do that. I understand.
I feel the same way, and I think it's because we study languages, so we probably think about it more.
Maybe.
It's in our brains. Most people probably would be like, okay,
it fucking bothers me.
Whatever. I don't bother with it too much,
I don't... another thing that's been normal these days, I'm not sure if you probably know, zenzen...
Oh,
something する instead of しない。
全然行くよ。
そうそう、全然行くとか、全然上手とか。
Yeah, then 全然 means like absolutely never negative, right?
Yeah, not at all.
Not at all. So like, but most people casually use it like as completely now. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna 100% go.
Yeah, instead of...
But what they mean by it, and this is where we get into like the nuanced grammatical, like the nerd stuff. But like what they mean is like, it's not a big deal for me to do it all. Like if someone says, oh, can you come to my party? Yeah, 全然行くよ means like, it's no problem for me whatsoever. Of course I'll go.
全然大丈夫 is the other thing.
The thing is though, even though grammatically it's not right, grammatically it's incorrect, but feeling-wise it's right.
Yeah, it feels right to say it.
It feels right to say.
It does feel right to say.
So, like, yes, it's grammatically incorrect, but the thing is, grammar was made up by people as well.
Grammar
is a made-up thing.
Was changed too, but it bothers me still.
Understandable, because you grew up in a way where it wasn't used that way. But, like, do you know the word sugoi? The actual kanji for it, if you've ever looked it up?
Yeah.
It means something horrible in the past.
I know that. What is it?
I forgot what it is. I learned about it when I was like studying. One of my teachers was like, one of my teachers, I was an essay writing class in my university, and he hated the same thing you did. He said when he went to a restaurant and the server said "ni narimasu," he actually complained to the managers.
Yeah, not
he
that.
was one of those kind of guys. But like all sorts of what is yabai.
Oh yeah, fucking.
Okay.
I hate yabai.
Here it is again. anyone who's listening who doesn't really know well, yabai is a casual way of saying like, okay, you know how in English you can be like, oh, sick. But sick can mean positive and negative.
Yeah.
Yabai is a similar way.
See.
It can mean... You said
Sick
sick to me earlier. Like,
yeah, I say sick.
Well, then I can say yabai, dude.
You can say it. I just don't say it.
Yabai. So it means like that same similar, like that's awesome, that's amazing, that's great. Or it means like, oh no, that's awful. That's fucking shit, man. It can mean both of those things depending on the context.
Yeah.
But
Useful
originally it meant something horrible and you should never say that word. It was like kind of not even a slur, but like, you know, a bad word.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't remember when. I remember my parents like scolding me for saying uzai.
Yeah, instead of urusai.
No,
or uzai is like,
you know,
annoying.
Yeah.
Utoshi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the actual word is uzatai or something. But that might be already a
but
slang too.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I've almost never heard that version. I've always heard uzai.
Right? And like 10... How old was I? Yeah, not even 10. Like 20 years ago or something, I would say yabai or uzai. And my parents would scold me. But they now use the word that they...
Exactly. See, language is reappropriated by everybody.
Yeah.
So, like, when people tell me, like, well, I want to make sure my Japanese is 100% correct, and it's like, I understand you do, but you have to also realize that if some people learn how to say yabai, they might say that to somebody who is from a different generation that they don't like that, right?
Yeah.
But then they have to learn, like, this is my way of speaking and own it and keep it.
Yeah, and you can't. What was I gonna say? No, I forgot. Go away.
That's okay.
So go ahead.
So, my point is, languages are always constantly changing as well.
Yeah.
So, like, learn grammatical rules. You know, that's zen daijoubu. You can say that. That's fine.
That's That's the next step. If you want to perfect, is that a verb?
To perfect, yeah.
To perfect your language, you can always do that later, but don't be afraid to make mistakes.
No, absolutely make mistakes.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think
making a mistake. So almost nobody remembers a mistake you made more than you, right? So like you can use that as a way to improve. Like no one's gonna remember you did that thing or said that thing.
So
unless you bring it up again, and then they all remember.
In the first episode, we talked about funny Japanese mistakes. And what Elise said, she was gonna say, tomorrow Louis, Tsubasa, and I are going to make candies, wagashi. And she said, Ame-chan. She wanted to say Ame-chan, right? I'm gonna make Ame-chan tomorrow, but she, can you guess?
Ame-chan is like when grandmas give you like little candies.
Yeah. But the mistake she made.
What did she say?
She said Aka-chan.
Aka-chan.
I'm gonna make babies with Louis and Tsubasa tomorrow. That's the best one so far. Have you had anything like that?
I'm sure I had something. I just can't really think of anything at the moment. But
that one's the best
I'm
so
sure
far.
I've said something ridiculous.
Ame-chan and Aka-chan.
Yeah, that's a pretty funny one. But yeah, but like even Ame-chan, like...
Yeah, I mean, you don't...
Well, here's one. I didn't really make this mistake to anyone, but just in my mind I had this mistake. So like in Japan, you know how there's kishoi, right? Kishoi. It's not a really good word. But then there's another...
So disgusting.
Yeah, like disgusting or like blah kind of thing. And then there's another word, kisho, like it means like rarity.
What?
Kisho, right? Like
kisho.
Yeah, kisho means
kisho,
rare.
Yeah.
Like someone has a rare quality about them, real personality, like
kisho. Yes. Kisho.
Those words were very similar in my mind, so I thought I was always mistaking the two.
So kisho and kisho.
Yeah.
That's gonna be... It's like, this is rare. This is disgusting.
Yeah. I never used it, but I had that mistake in my mind.
Kisho. Do they sound the same?
They don't sound the same, but in my mind,
similar, yeah.
In my mind, I had mixed them up because to a non-native speaker, they're similar enough.
Absolutely, I had ejaculation and evacuation.
Yeah, so it's quite easy to have those in your mind because you should always think of that as a positive, because what that means is you have a recollection of bits of the word. And we break words down into syllables in English. So
Yeah.
even though you had it wrong, you had most of it right, which is a positive thing. So even if you used it wrong, that's fine. You should be proud of the fact that you could even recall most of that word.
Yeah, that's a process. One word I have to think every time. It's savory, but I can never remember this word. So I remember the word slavery, so I can remember savory.
Okay.
What's that word? Sweet slavery. Okay, savory.
Yeah, no, that's good. You basically created a trick in your
link.
mind.
That's
a
true.
link. That's super important as well. Yeah, actually,
Yeah,
that's
I
a
didn't
really,
realize
really good tip for learning a language.
Another one is suspicious. I always remember like Sid Vicious. From
Oh,
Sex
yeah,
Pistols.
yeah,
Sid
yeah,
Vicious,
yeah, yeah,
suspicious.
Yeah, that's good. That's really
Sounds
good.
similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, first time somebody said that word, I thought they were talking about Sex Pistols.
Oh, yeah. Someone told me this, and it was funny enough that I remembered it.
Yeah.
So,
Hit me.
itadakimasu means something you say before you eat a meal, and it's
Yeah.
basically a way to say thank you. It's
For food or whatever.
it's generally people use it, but it has a religious meaning too. But most people
Yeah.
just say it like for before they eat.
Mm.
Someone a long time ago stayed at a homestay, and this was probably like 1970s or something, really long time. And they wrote a comment on someone's blog about Japanese learning or whatever. And they thought when they did a homestay, they were not saying itadakimasu. They thought they were saying ita Mickey Mouse. Ita Mickey Mouse, like Mickey.
Eat a Mickey Mouse.
Their
wow.
ears heard instead of itadakimasu, ita Mickey Mouse.
Wow.
Because they didn't know what it meant. So their brain made something up, right? But it was
Yeah,
the
it
funniest one I've
happens.
heard.
The most common thing that really just like surprised all of us Japanese people, including me, is like how much you guys mix up kawaii and kawaii.
Oh yeah,
That's like
an
the
easy
most
one.
common one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really shocked me. Cause like,
Kawaii ne, kawaii ne, like it, but
yeah,
because the
yeah.
k and the a sound and o sound in English can be very similar sometimes. So I think it's really easy to make that mistake.
Also, we think of it in the kana, so kawaii.
Yes,
You guys,
yes.
yeah, see,
Yeah, it's more k, because we break it down by
Yeah.
letter or by syllables.
yeah, it's so interesting. Other thing, I don't know. There's so many things. It's really fascinating. Anything that you can think of?
Like tsuki and suki.
Huh?
The ts and s sound
Oh, it's
can be difficult for a lot of people.
ski. Yeah, what about the? So, yeah, one thing I always get frustrated about is L and R.
Yeah.
But when you want to say like "darirurero" in Japanese,
Yeah.
it's like impossible to write in alphabet. Like
yes.
R, you guys use R,
Sure.
but like fair enough. Like you read it in the way that you would in English because
Sure.
we don't have the middle. Like you have to.
Yes.
How do you?
It's like at the top of your tongue. So if you
Exactly,
say
top of
if
your-
you say it love, this is great for podcasts by the way because we're using our mouths and you can't see it. But if you can pull up a diagram on the internet of how your tongue is placed when you say the L sound, basically the tongue is at the top of the teeth and goes and comes out.
Right.
So it's more of a
Bleh.
to outside. The air is coming out. But in Japanese, it's very top of the the tongue touches the tip of the roof of your mouth.
Roof of your
and
mouth,
it's
not a teeth.
soft. There's no h sound. It's l.
That's great.
So, if you want to learn pronunciation like that, learning mouth movements or tongue movements is very important. And I highly recommend you use a mirror to look at your own mouth moving.
Really, that helps.
Because most people consciously have never really seen themselves talking.
No.
So, if you really just are, some people, I don't think it matters so much, but some people are like, no, I must have perfect pronunciation. And if you're one of those types, I recommend you do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to have good pronunciation. Yeah, that one has been difficult for me to teach my friends. I'm not a professional teacher, but yeah, I recently realized, there's a different place that my tongue is touching.
And we don't think about it when we say things
Absolutely.
because we have a mind memory muscle connection, right? So like "nani-do-de-do," I can say it fine.
Da-di-do-de-do.
But then if I think about how to do it, "da-di-do-de-do," my tongue is at the top and it's just a little touch.
Yeah. Did you, so when you mastered Ragyo, did you, was it after you realized where you place in, or you kind of naturally picked up from?
I naturally picked it up. And
Good.
I was lucky enough to be young enough that I could do it.
Mm.
So started learning when I was 12, learned through, like, I didn't take a lesson in school, I did myself, to be honest, I watched a lot of anime back in the day. Not so much anymore, but at the time I watched a lot, and that really helped to learn pronunciation. But I will say this, do not think that anime characters speak like real people, because they don't.
We repeatedly talk about this on my podcast.
It's a great resource.
Yeah,
but it'd be like learning
trashy.
English from watching like action movies. And so like you're walking around like Arnold Schwarzenegger, like, "I'll be back, this is how I talk.
Get down!
There's
a bomb!"
Like, it's good because you are learning some of the way it's spoken, but it's not necessarily how it is naturally spoken.
Can you imagine motherfuckers speaking
Yes.
like Schwarzenegger, like going to like study abroad the first time, like, "Get down, there's a bomb."
You know, the interesting thing is I have a friend who went and lived in New York City for some time, and his circle of friends were like hip hop, and they lived in a ghetto and stuff. So his way of speaking is quite Ebonic, and I don't mean that in any kind of negative sense.
Ebonic, what does that mean?
Well, Ebonics is basically the way African American, Black Americans speak, and not all, but in general.
What does Ebony mean?
Ebonics is the it's a term that was made by a linguist about the African American vernacular, African American spoken English, also called AAVE in linguistic societies.
Sense.
So it was called Ebonics. Please forgive me if I'm incorrect about any of this, but it's also called AAVE, and it's traditionally, or the way that most or many Black Americans speak in their communities.
Right. So he speaks like that.
He speaks like that because his whole circle was like that. He didn't pick that up to insult anyone. He didn't pick that up in any racist way or whatever. But the way he speaks is very like that. And he was really insecure about it because he said, "It doesn't make me sound like I know how to speak English." And I said, "Do you like where you learned English?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "It's fine.
It shows
you actually learned what you were there for."
That's interesting.
And so, and the other people I've met have lived in like Southern America, so they have a little bit of like a little bit of an accent, and they're ashamed of it. And I'm like, you should never be ashamed, because schools in Japan teach you one way and one way only, right? So when you're a returnee or studied abroad and you picked up that language or habits or slang of the place where you lived, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
It even makes you interesting. I mean, that's something to talk about.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure.
You go to a bar and you talk like that, and people be like, "Where you been?" And
that's something. But for Americans or other people in the world, I couldn't say Europe, but I know for sure in America. Let's say, or Canada probably. Let's say you went to Quebec and you learned French, Quebec, English, France, or whatever. And then you went to another part of Canada, and then you were like, "Yeah, I lived in Quebec for 5 years. This is why I speak like this." They'd be like, "Oh, cool." They wouldn't say anything. They wouldn't care. But I have noticed in Japan that even though I speak politely, my Kansai ben comes out, even though I don't try.
I see.
Because the intonation can be different in some ways.
Yeah.
So even though I'm not consciously controlling that, it comes out.
Have you realized some words, when Kansai people pronounce, they sound like Japanese learners, I mean, people who study Japanese pronounce it like.
No, you're absolutely right.
It's close, eh?
It's closer.
Like, oh, man. I can't think of it.
I know for when I was studying at JCMU, Professor Melville, Mrs. Melville, if you ever listen to this, just let you know, you're one of my greatest inspirations and I love you. But She really chastised our class because
what's that mean?
Chastise means to like give a lecture of like, this is bad, don't do that.
Okay.
Because we are all going out and meeting people, and they're from Kansai, and they were speaking to us in natural ways, and she wanted us to learn textbook Japanese because I'm sure that was required of her as a teacher, not because maybe she felt it was necessary. But she said, when you're in my class, you will say mas, not masu.
That's strict.
Because in Kansai, most people casually like, oh, ikimasu. Masu. This elongated sound. And she was like, no, ikimasu. Mas. That's how you say it.
That's what I like about Kansai. I picked up that thing I picked up really quickly when I moved to Kansai. Masu. It sounds cute.
It does sound a little cute. And by the way, we're speaking generally about Kansai Ben if you know, but there's a little bit of variance between Osaka and Kyoto and Nara and all these places.
I have no fucking idea. I
mixed
them up.
Slight differences. Like Kyoto people are a little bit more like ooh kind of sound, and Osaka people are like kind of sound. And,
I see.
Like the famous example. Okay, so for kuru means to come. So in Kyoto, many people.
Let me guess.
Go ahead.
Kiharu.
Kiharu. Yes, some people will say.
Okay, what is it?
What about so kuru is kiharu, and then like for example, let's not kuru. Let's say konai. Konai is a negative, so I'm not coming. So what would you say is for Kyoto?
Man, I'm not kohen.
Kihin.
Those people weird.
I said kihin.
So, I see that makes sense.
We are getting into a deep Japanese discussion, so I apologize to anybody out there who doesn't know exactly what we're talking about.
No,
but
it's okay.
So the word konai, this is a general thing, but in Kansai you might say kohen.
Yeah.
But a lot of people in Kobe or this area say keihen.
What? Really?
Yeah, apparently. Now maybe they don't do that so much anymore.
I see. Gifu is not Kansai, but we say kohen.
Yeah.
Kon.
But
I would say.
One thing I have noticed is that younger people speak more standardized Kansai Ben than older people do. Older people have more variance, in my opinion.
Yeah, probably. Maybe
because they grew up in like a neighborhood that they spoke a certain way, and then in Kyoto they all had a certain neighborhood where they spoke a certain way. But like young people see each other more, and they're more of a big group of people in Kansai.
Makes sense though.
Yeah, so there's all sorts of different ways you can express Japanese through dialects as well.
Yeah,
and even the Keigo that you might speak in Kansai can be a little bit different from what you might say in Tokyo. In like, for example, you can say shiharu in Kyoto, and that's a polite way to say about somebody.
Pretty classy way of talking Kyoto people, but everybody hates Kyoto people.
Sure they do. That's another topic we can talk about sometime too. But like,
I don't know anybody personally. So
my school, I teach in Kyoto, so most of my students live in Kyoto or near Kyoto.
Do you feel whatever that people say, like people at Kyoto is very exclusive?
Well, without hurting anyone's feelings, yes, I
do. No, don't worry about hurting people's feelings.
Well, if anyone is out there from Kyoto or
fuck you
living in Kyoto, no. I'm just going to say,
if you're from Kyoto, fuck you.
We love you. Wink, wink. That's a Kyoto way of being. You insult someone to their face by complimenting them in Kyoto.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Like you have a nice watch. That means it's time for you to go home.
Yeah, it's time for you to go home. Yeah, that's a big one too.
It's cheap too.
Well, I mean, like I don't mean like it's cheap, but like something insulting about that watch, or it's time for you to go home.
I see. I heard that one. It's like,
I mean, there's some famous examples, but I mean,
what?
Well,
do you actually experience that?
I have. I mean, it's difficult to say because I try not to read too much into what people say about me, personally, just in general.
Good.
But like, for example, I live in Shiga. Shiga Prefecture is next to Kyoto Prefecture.
Oh, okay.
So there's Kyoto Station, Yamashina Station, and then Otsu Station. And that's now Shiga. But Yamashina's in the middle, technically still Kyoto.
Oh, yeah.
When people ask me where do I live, I say, oh, I live in Otsu. They go, tokunai? Like, that means, like, isn't that far away? It's literally 2 stations up.
Oh, from Kyoto.
From Kyoto. But they act like it's a completely different world. And then they ask me, Yamashina's in Shiga, right? And I'm like, no. Yamashina's in Kyoto. They're like, hey, Yamashina, Kyoto. It is. Stop being like that. It aggravates me. Yes, it is. They just don't want to admit Yamashina is in Kyoto because Yamashina is what they call a bed town. Yamashina is a place where you live, but you work in Kyoto. And it's literally like right next door, so. But like there's no cool things that they can claim as being like culturally cool, so they pretend it's not part of Kyoto.
You know the city I hate?
Which is?
Nagoya.
Nagoya.
I hate Nagoya.
Why
if
is
you're
that?
from Nagoya, fuck you too.
I actually like Nagoya, but why?
That's good. Well, in general, like, people are kind of cold. And I'm next to Nagoya. Gifu is next to Nagoya. They take everything away from us. And also...
Similar to Shiga and Kyoto.
I always tell people, like, what's Nagoya like? Because I went to Osaka. I've been to Nagoya so many times after that. I went to Osaka and I realized Osaka is like Nagoya, but it has so much personality to it. So if you, like, have a glass of water, you dump Nagoya into it. No. You have Osaka and you put the glass of water and you mix that with Osaka and that's Nagoya. Nagoya has no fucking identity or
actually,
any personality.
I kind of realized that.
And people are cold. It's just a big city that has nothing to offer other than miso.
Well, maybe. I went there and I noticed there was a lot of really nice cafes. I really like the cafe culture in Nagoya, but
there's a whole thing about
I really love tsuba-an, which is like Japanese red bean paste and it's sweet.
Uncle.
I love it on toast. So
they do that.
Yeah, one of my favorite coffee places in
Psychos.
Japan is called Komeda Coffee.
Komeda, that's a chain.
It's a chain from Nagoya.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
we have a lot in Gifu.
Exactly.
One thing I realized here is that people think Komeda is this like fancy chain.
No, it's really down home at like like it feels
really
comfortable
cheap
in
shit.
there.
It's really cheap shit,
Yeah.
but like people here, like at least my coworkers treat Komeda like it's one of the fancier.
Really?
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's not.
No, but my coworkers.
I don't know why it is.
Shocked.
But like, every time I'm in a Komeda, I feel like like relaxed and I feel good and like.
It's like what's
nice,
the
nice
equivalent of that in America?
Well, it depends because there's so many different coffee houses and stuff. But like
the level of that kind of
like,
cheapy, but comfortable.
Here's
but
the
cheap.
thing. I'm not from Canada, but Tim Hortons.
Yeah,
all
Tim
Canadians
Hortons,
love Tim
for
Hortons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Timmy Hoes, what do they call it? Like
Timmy's,
something like that. Timbits. Like I've never met a Canadian who doesn't like Tim Hortons. So I feel like Komeda, it feels like that to me.
Yeah, probably. It's easy to walk into.
Yeah, and always the people
intimidating.
there are nice, friendly staff. Like I've never met, had a problem or anything like that. And
Komeda is from Nagoya.
Yeah. Actually, I went to Nagoya a few months ago just to walk around because I've never been there before. And I love Komeda, so I decided to go to the first store, number one store. The Komeda. And I walked all the way there. It took all day.
Oh, yeah?
But I did other stuff along the way, too. But I made it. And I ate a piece. I had some cake there. And it was like a pilgrimage. Coffee pilgrimage. So I enjoyed it.
One place I like in Nagoya is Osu. Osu. You know Osu Shotengai?
I don't think so.
How do you say Shotengai?
Shopping street. So
Shopping
like a
street.
lot of little towns and streets in Japan will have a little covered street where a lot of shops are.
Shopping street.
And a lot of times they're not like big brand stores like Gap or something like that. A lot of times they're like mom and pop older people's shops.
It's kind of like Amerikamura in Osaka.
Yeah,
but
a little bit.
It's I wouldn't say it's small. It's smaller, but they have that kind of vibe. Also,
they're usually near
like
to the station too, so you can go there, get some lunch, or chat with some elderly people, or buy grandmother style clothing.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a lot of interesting characters that hang around there.
Yeah. So, we've been talking for a while.
Oh,
okay.
Good.
1 hour and 40.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, I hope nobody's bored enough, that they haven't stopped listening. If you've made it this far, congratulations.
Well, this is the best part. Like, we just got, the conversation kind of started.
we started drifting.
Yeah, it's been fun. I guess I'm gonna wrap it up soon.
Sure.
Any other funny thing that's happened to you since you came to Japan, or maybe it's a hard question.
That's a super hard question. You have to narrow it down.
I remember you talking about this. It's a while ago, but you talking about the tattoo that this guy had about something like futoi and. You remember that one?
Yes. Okay. When I was in America, basically, I had to quit my school a few times to make money and come back. So I was working in a factory in America, and I was working in a really nice place with really great people, and we were making like candy bars or something, I forget. And one of the guys that worked there was a really tall guy, like super, super tall, and also super, super big. Like, he was a very, very rotund person. But he was a sweet guy. He would always talk about his family because he had like 10 kids or something. Like, he had a crazy amount of kids.
Okay.
And, he was known as like a big daddy kind of person.
Sure.
And I used to study Japanese on my breaks. I would read, manga, or I would like study or whatever, to, because I'm preparing myself to go back to Japan. I don't want to forget anything. And so they found out I could read Japanese. And one day he comes to me and he's like, hey, I heard you speak Japanese, so I want you to tell me what my tattoo says, like as a test to me, right?
Oh, shit, okay.
Well, on his arm, what do you think he had written?
I remember like something like father and something like that.
So
Big father.
His nickname is Big Daddy, right? So literally, he must have translated Big Daddy, and it came out as, in Japanese, maybe Chinese is different, but it's the kanji for futoru, right? And then chichi.
Okay.
So it literally says fat father. So I go, fat father? And he goes, it's supposed to say Big Daddy. And he was legitimately so angry at me.
Angry at you?
He was angry at me.
Jesus Christ.
Because obviously he realized what a horrible mistake that was, right? But he was completely like furious. So I was like, I'm gonna back away now. And so
I didn't know that.
I felt horrible because I didn't mean to insult him. Like,
you didn't insult him. You just said what it says.
I mean, but literally it says that.
Yeah, literally.
So I was like, that's what it means. But Big Daddy is just another kind way of saying you big old fat ass with 10 kids. And if you're ever listening to this podcast too, sir, I apologize. But
there's no who knows.
Who knows? It could be. But there's.
Don't be mad at her.
The thing is, though, like, I don't like to critique people's tattoos because whether they're right or wrong, like.
I love doing it.
I mean,
we can judge everybody. They can judge us.
That's true.
But it's funny, just funny. And
I mean, you would think if you're getting a tattoo, you would put a little more effort into it, like.
Well, like if you want to get Japanese tattoo, ask me.
I mean, I've seen some pretty crazy things. Yeah. I'm just saying, if you ever plan on getting a tattoo in Japanese, please do so. Just ask Tsubasa or ask me.
Ask Shaye and Tsubasa.
Anybody who speaks Japanese well enough.
Don't ask me because I might fuck with you.
Oh yeah, he'll probably tell you the wrong thing so he can laugh at you behind your back.
I actually thought of opening this merch store that sells wrong Japanese shirts and wrong English.
Oh, I would love that. That'd be hilarious.
But yeah, we'll see about that. Well, I'm gonna wrap this up.
Okay.
It's been.
That was a long thing. Thank you for listening.
And you're starting a podcast too, right?
Yeah, I'm planning on starting a podcast. My podcast, the logistics behind it are complex because I don't want to do the typical thing of, we talk about what's taboo in Japan. Oh, you can't enter onsen if you have a tattoo. Ooh. I actually want to talk to people about subjects. Like, for example, I'm really interested in people who have joined cults in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
Foreigners or non-foreigners. So I'd really love to talk to somebody who knows about it or who has escaped a cult or who is still part of one.
If you know somebody.
I would love to, for example, talk to somebody about that. Just because I feel like there are a lot of topics in Japan that, not that they're taboo, it's just that people wouldn't even know how to begin to talk about. And I'd love to do that kind of thing. So if you're out there...
yeah, if you're out there, or you're in a cult, or you used to be in a cult...
You know about it. If you've ever done anything like that, or have any other, things... But if that ever gets going, Tsubasa, you're going to be one of my guests.
Absolutely.
It would be great.
Sure. All right. So, see you guys in, yeah. Don't get weird tattoos.
Or do.
Actually, do that. Bye.
Bye.
That's funny.
Yeah.